I am a Venezuelan. I saw my system collapse, and I see the systems in multiple countries slowly collapse. I value privacy, I value liberty, and being able to do whatever the fuck I want with my money when I want it without asking permission to anyone is something so liberating.
This podcast is sponsored by ATM Radar. When buying crypto with cash, an ATM is much more reliable and safer than meeting some random person in a random place. And unlike an exchange, which could freeze your account, you truly own all the crypto you buy. With ATM Radar, you could find crypto ATMs and other services where you can buy and sell cryptocurrencies for cash. On their website, you can search by coin, address, if the ATM supports selling as well as buying, and you can also search by geo area, country, state, city. You can also check and compare actual current fees at different ATMs. If you want to find out more, head over to coinatmradar.com, which is coinatmradar.com. All right, so first, what's your name and who are you?
My name is Lorenzo Rey. I am a Bitcoin enthusiast since 2016, and I'm living on Bitcoin in El Salvador.
Yeah, so you say you're living on Bitcoin. So what percentage of your income is in Bitcoin?
Well, income or total net worth, I will argue, in terms of net worth, like 90 something percent, it will be in Bitcoin. And in terms of income, I do earn in Bitcoin a lot. So that obviously goes straight into Bitcoin. But I also have fiat or revenue from different businesses and stuff. And I convert 95% into Bitcoin or something like that. I still do have bank accounts because they're still useful to me in Latin America for different stuff. So this is a very interesting discussion because uh, things like credit or things like that are things that you can take advantage of. And so I haven't gotten rid of all that. But I do have multiple bank accounts, but I always keep like $200 here, $100 there. And they're useful for specific things. Uh, Sometimes sending money to family, they don't usually like to take Bitcoin if they're in Venezuela or something that you want the fiat. And so I haven't gone as hardcore as you closing my bank account. I actually do have several bank accounts, but 90 something percent of my income and net worth is in Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's so do you pay for which bills do you pay in Bitcoin? This is the hardest one, right? Like as far as I guess the big ones would be, rent and then utilities, and then there's other things like car and phone and things like that. So, which of those do you pay most of those in Bitcoin as well, or is that one that's harder to do?
I mean, all the household bills I pay in Bitcoin, and it's super easy to do here in El Salvador. Either the companies themselves, like in terms of adoption of Bitcoin, like the biggest companies, they all adopted Bitcoin because they had enough money to just pay some payment service or something to integrate. So it's the small merchants who are still not adopting it. It's going to take longer time. But a lot of companies like phone companies, internet companies, they all accept Bitcoin in their websites here. So it's super easy. You just pay your phone bill, electricity bill, even municipal taxes. You have to pay those, municipality taxes here. They all take Bitcoin. But you can also pay a lot of them via bit refill. So a lot of times they don't have their systems working or something. Bit refill specifically has been very useful for me, especially with the water bills. The water people, they want you to go and pay with Bitcoin, but in person, like a POS device. It's annoying. I'd rather pay with bit
Mm.
refill. So internet, water, electricity, municipal taxes, uh, all that I pay with Bitcoin. When it comes to rent and things like that, well, I have moved in several locations, so sometimes it has been more difficult to convince people, but I usually find an intermediary or something, or I convince them to, get cheaper wallet and they can fully convert there or something. So that's usually a very easy way to go about it. So yeah.
Yeah. So now, what about other basic expenses like, groceries and other things like that? Is that easy to do with Bitcoin?
Super easy. Well, there's a huge chain of supermarkets here in El Salvador called Super Selectos. They're like the biggest thing. They don't really have any serious competitors that are local. Their only serious competitors Walmart, and Walmart also accepts Bitcoin here. So if you go into the supermarket, you can easily buy everything with Bitcoin. So it's what I mostly do. Um, Granted, vegetables, fruit, and things like that are more expensive there and usually not as good quality. They're not as fresh as in a local farmer's market or something like that. And so when you go to those places, it's harder to find people who will accept Bitcoin. So they usually just take cash. But there's a network of 250 plus ATMs here in the country. I think it's up to 300 counting private and also the Chivo ones, and so you can easily just go to any ATM locations. They're easily, I mean, all the farmers markets and things like that, they have an ATM near, so you can just withdraw $200 or $100 of Bitcoin in cash and pay in cash in those places. But I don't do that a lot. But like my sister does, or people that I know. I know they like going to those places rather than the supermarket. If it's me doing the groceries, I'll just do everything on the supermarket, and it's very easy to pay with Bitcoin. There's one caveat though, which is that most people are not paying with Bitcoin, and so they usually only have one cash register where they're accepting Bitcoin. So if you just got everything together in this aisle and you try to pay, they say no, go to the aisle number whatever, and you have to go there and pay there. They're not prepared to accept Bitcoin in every single one of the cashiers. So, but I mean, those are minor annoyances. You can buy, uh, you know, anything really in terms of supermarket easily with Bitcoin. No problem.
Yeah. Now, what about I guess the things that are less essential. So, for example, I'm just drawing from my personal life, running in my little pattern. If I could plan things out very well, I could do everything. Where stuff starts to get more difficult is, for example, social type things. So, for example, going out first off, like to the coffee shop. Most of the coffee shops that I prefer don't take crypto. Or then
Yeah.
also like some people say, hey, let's go out and get some drinks or whatever. How often is that, with Bitcoin?
Well, I must admit, like, I don't do a lot of, you know, meeting friends in person and doing all that. And when we do that, we usually do it at home. Like, let's cook some meat and things like that, which I can easily pay for with Bitcoin. I mostly meat. And when I go out, I usually go out with my girlfriend. And I tend to pick places that I know accept Bitcoin, and so it's a more planned thing. I don't remember an instance recently where I had that situation you just mentioned, but if that were the case, as I say, I do have bank accounts, and if it's too bothersome, I always have $100, $200 in a bank account, so I could just do that. But ideally, I would convince them to, you can pay, and I'll pay my share in Bitcoin. Or I always have like 60 bucks, $80 in cash in my wallet just for, if anything happens, I can solve with cash. So yeah.
Yeah, now what about travel? Because you live in a place where you figured out your own living situation, how to work. But
Yeah.
when you're in unfamiliar territory where you're not quite as used to, being able to do everything, does that get a little bit more difficult?
Yeah, definitely gets more difficult. But one of the things that I do in my series, Viviendo con Bitcoin, it's all in Spanish, which is just living on Bitcoin. I'm doing it in multiple countries. And what I'm doing is putting it to the test and making videos showing people that I can do it regardless of which country I'm at. So right now, I'm actually in Turkey. I arrived in Turkey about 4 days ago. So right now, it's 5 p.m. here. And I already spent some time here a couple of years back, and I found a lot of solutions. So there's an ATM. It's a little far away, but fees aren't too high. You can get some cash there with Bitcoin. But there are uh, several shops where they'll exchange Bitcoin, like exchanges, but physical locations where you can send them Bitcoin and they'll give you cash, or even a bank account transfer. I don't have bank accounts in Turkey, but they're super easy. One of them is called Naked Coins, and so in the next couple of weeks, I'll be releasing videos getting cash, local liras in cash here with Bitcoin. Uh, so a lot of what I do when I travel to other places is that I try to find ATMs or individuals, some peer-to-peer market online or some physical location where I can get cash. So cash is the easiest solution. If I can get cash with Bitcoin, then I'll pay with cash because they don't directly accept Bitcoin, but I still will call that living on Bitcoin. I didn't have to open a bank account there, or I didn't have to, do KYC on some place. Get cash keeps them pretty private, and so that's what I do when I'm traveling. Now, depending on the country, like for example, when I went to Guatemala, uh, I went to Antigua, and I also went to it's being called Lake Bitcoin right now, but
Hmm.
it's called Lake Atitlan. And there are a bunch of businesses there. The hotel where we stay, we can pay in Bitcoin. There are a lot of shops where you can buy. I made a bunch of videos in Guatemala paying with Bitcoin. So I must admit that I'm also trying to travel to places where I know there are options. It's not like I'm going to random places where
Hmm.
there aren't any options. And when it comes to tickets, the best solution for me has been Cheap Air. I buy all my tickets using Cheap Air. It's super easy. Uh, it's actually great because Cheap Air never asked me for passport details, which is something that a lot of airline websites ask you to put in your passport. And so my girlfriend was actually surprised because she was like, "Hey, how do they know it's our flight? Like you just put your name and your email and that's it." I show up to the airport with just my name. Obviously, I show my passport to the guy at the airport, but he already sees my reservation with just my name, and it works great. So Cheap Air is definitely the greatest solution for buying airplane tickets. I think I've used Bitrefill once because they sell gift cards for some airline stuff. So I think I did that once, but it wasn't as smooth as just me, buying on Cheap Air. So that's what I mostly do.
Yeah. So, what wallet do you tend to use, or what wallets do you tend to use when doing all this?
Great question. So I basically have two hot wallets that I use the most. When it comes to on-chain Bitcoin, I use Exodus. I wouldn't recommend Exodus for holding, your life savings or anything like that. It's a hot wallet. It has a lot of, NFT gallery and a lot of things that they've added over the years. But their on-chain transactions are reliable. I know their on-chain Bitcoin transactions are non-RBF, which means that I will likely get my cash instantly or as close as possible. A lot of Lightning wallets. The reason I don't do a lot of on-chain transactions using Lightning wallets is because most of them have RBF enabled, and so ATMs or things want to wait for six confirmations and things like that, just to make sure they don't get replaced by a higher fee. And so yeah, I use Exodus a lot for on-chain, and for Lightning I use Phoenix wallet. I've been using a lot of Breeze and Phoenix as the main non-custodial wallets. But in terms of UI, I mean, Breeze has more things.
Hmm.
They have a whole SDK that's really cool, and I think they're a nicer all-around Bitcoin company with all the services that they offer for other businesses and stuff. But for like personal wallet use, I think Phoenix is superior. Like the app flows better. It just takes half a second less to do everything, and it's just very smooth. And so, yeah, Phoenix Wallet is definitely my pick.
Yeah. So you mostly do everything on mobile phones. You don't do a lot of computer type payments.
Yeah, not really. All my payments for everything I do, it's mobile. I mean, I have my cold storage, and I do use wallets on desktop, but it's never to actually pay for something. It's mostly to manage my own stack and move things around internally, not to pay for things out in the field.
Yeah. And what are some other services that you tend to use a lot that aren't just wallet and then end user? I know you mentioned Bitrefill and then also Cheap Air for flying. Are there any other ones that kind of stand out as very useful to you?
Um, that's a very good question. Well, I have a couple custodial wallets that I use. Some of them give you the capacity to dollarize your balance. And
Mm.
so, for example, Blink Wallet, it's a custodial wallet that's very popular here in El Salvador. Well, I'm not in El Salvador right now, but I used to in El Salvador. They have They have a very interesting mechanism called stable sats. And the thing I like about stable sats is that I'm very anti stable coins. I don't really like stable coins, especially because most of the big ones are backed by US debt. And so it's just like a fiat, house of cards. And so I like wallets that allow you, I know stability is important, and I like wallets that allow you to have a stable balance, but it's not actually a stable coin. And so Blink has been useful to dollarize my balance sometimes, despite the fact that it's custodial. Uh, I'm not Salvadorian, so I cannot use Chivo wallet, but my girlfriend is Salvadorian, so she has Chivo, and so we can dollarize her Bitcoin balance there. And also, she has a local bank account, and so I can send her Bitcoin to her Chivo wallet, and she can withdraw to her local bank. If we need to send money to somebody or do something like that. So definitely, and the whole network of ATMs that Chivo has been useful as well in El Salvador. Um, Other specific services, I don't know, just payment processors, websites, or things like that. But
Hmm.
nothing that really stands out other than that.
Yeah, and how difficult do you think it would be for other people to live like you? Is it just you put a lot of work into it and it's very unique to your situation, or do you think it's something other people could easily replicate?
I think that's a great question. I definitely think that most people, it's not that they can't, it's that I don't think they will put in the effort, even if it's a minimal effort. Unfortunately, people want to do no effort. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you have to put, you know, 10 out of 10 out of 100 or 1 out of 10 of effort, they already rather do zero, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think it will be too difficult, really. Uh, but I know most people don't even want to do that extra bit of work. And so depending on what you do, uh, some things might be harder than others. But really in El Salvador, things like supermarkets super easy. The network of ATMs super easy to get cash with Bitcoin. It's really not difficult at all. Like it wouldn't take me more than a few minutes to explain to somebody everything I do, and maybe they can give me a call if they're confused with something. It's really not. It's really not difficult. I think that the most difficult part for me was like researching everything, and like if somebody wanted to do what I do without the information that I have, they would spend a lot of time like finding these things, and finding other people who are living like this online and finding these tools. But if I can give these tools to somebody who is willing to do this, they could adapt in a couple of days. If they already are a Bitcoin holder, it would be super easy for them to just do everything I do in just a couple of days. It's really not hard.
Yeah, and so why do you decide to live this way?
Well, I am full believer in liberty and self sovereignty, and this is the reason why I came into this space. I am a Venezuelan. I saw my system collapse, and I see the systems in multiple countries slowly collapse. I value privacy, I value liberty, and being able to do whatever the fuck I want with my money when I want it without asking permission to anyone is something so liberating. It's something that makes me feel free, makes me feel powerful, makes me feel, you know, uh, outside of the matrix. And I think everybody should live this way or should have the option to live this way. I'm nobody. I mean, if somebody wants to be a slave, who am I to tell them not to, be inside the matrix or whatever? It's your choice. But having the choice to live in your own uh, with your own parameters, the way you want to live is very important to me. And so that's the main reason I do it. I still have bank accounts and things like that because there are things that are convenient, like a credit card that you can plug some service into and things like that. So uh, I definitely understand why a lot of people don't want to, go full, completely outside of fiat. But I minimize it as much as I can, and I try to and not only with payments, with freedom technology in general, messaging, email, password manager, what hardware do you use in your home or for your personal devices. Like I consistently do effort to avoid the matrix in everything I can, to avoid sharing my data, to avoid. uh, relying on a trusted third party for me to do something that I want to do. If I can do it by my own, I'll install a system where I don't need a third party, or I will choose a third party that has encryption or things like that. So that's my primary motivation. I know a lot of people are into Bitcoin more for like number go up, bullshit, or things like that. I don't care. I recently tweeted that Bitcoin could stay the same price for the rest of my life, and I would still use it. Obviously, if the price goes up, I'll be happy, but that's not the reason I mean this. Like every single time I have to do something with a bank, I start cursing and I start, going mad. Like limits, annoyances, frozen accounts, asking questions. I've had my Amazon account shut down and all kind of different services shut down because of decentralized crap that just knowing that I own my stuff and that I can do whatever I want with no limits, no restrictions, no asking permission to anybody, no capabilities for them to censor me is just awesome. It's the way I like to live. And that's the reason I do this.
Now, do you think other people should try to live this way?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm constantly, trying to convince people to live more this way. And in El Salvador, it's been really beautiful to see how people even if it's slowly, start doing this thing. Like I get friends or people who tell me, "Oh, the other day I was in this situation. I used this ATM, I used some Bitcoin that I had, and I was able to solve. Or I paid for this thing in Bitcoin. I know people who have gotten jobs that pay them in Bitcoin, either a part of their salary or if it's more of a freelance type of work, and they get some amount in Bitcoin. I got some payment in Bitcoin. Where can I spend it? And so I think everybody should aspire to do this. I think people live inside the matrix and they don't know, they haven't tasted freedom, and so they think it's not important. But all it takes is for you know centralized services to shut you down in some way to feel the frustration and inspire you to do this, or even worse, which is what happened to me, your entire monetary system collapsing in your country. That definitely ultra motivates you to find alternatives for freedom. And so yeah, I encourage everybody to live this way, to find the alternative to be free, to have full control of your own money and of your own data, and of your own decisions. It's not only Bitcoin. Bitcoin is one of the freedom technologies that I use, but any technology that allows me, or even not even a technology, a method, uh, a book, anything that helps me, live a life of freedom is something that I will support, and something that I will probably recommend to other people.
All right. Well, I think that's probably it. I think that's a good picture of
Yeah.
that kind of thing.